And welcome into the first edition of season three, I guess, of the Prep Redzone Coaches Corner. I'm Michael Knight, the director of Prep Redzone Oklahoma. And for the third consecutive year, we will be sitting down with first year head coaches at new programs all throughout the month of May, every single Wednesday here on our Prep Redzone Oklahoma YouTube channel, as well as on social media. And my first guest of the series for the month of May, and we'll be extending it into June, is new Edmond North head coach Carter Whitson. And coach, you're not a first year head coach, but you are first year going into your first year at Edmond North. Talk about let's start with your history. Obviously, graduated from Shawnee a while ago, but at the same time, a lot of history here in the state. You went up to Indiana for a bit, but a few years ago in 2020, you came back home to take over Putnam City. Just talk about your journey in football and coming back home a few years ago.
Yeah, man, you nailed it. You don't even need me. You got it all figured out already. I know I grew up playing for my dad. My dad was my high school head coach at Shawnee, and then actually won a state championship there my junior year in 2003, and went to Broken Arrow my senior year. So technically, I'm a grad from Broken Arrow, but I claimed Shawnee and got my ring from there and won that place state championship. So that's still home. But played at Broken Arrow, ended up walking on at Oklahoma. So played football at Oklahoma. High school, played everything, quarterback, safety, all that stuff. Went to Oklahoma and didn't know what I was going to play. Saw Adrian Peterson, said I better play offense. I can't tackle him. Ended up being there a year. Sam Bradford came in. I said I better go play wide receiver because I wasn't going to play quarterback. So ended up just kind of being a journeyman, playing some special teams and really learning the coaching side of it. Kind of looked at it as a 5-year internship, playing for Bob Stoops and Kevin Wilson and all those guys, having some great wide receivers coaches, Kevin Sumlin, Jay Norvell, Brent Venables is on staff. I mean, all-star cast. So really took it as 5 years of learning how to do it. Thought I was always going to coach high school ball like my dad. But when I timed out at Oklahoma, Kevin Wilson was leaving to take the Indiana University job. So I was fortunate enough to follow him up there and worked for Kevin for 6 years. I was an analyst for first year, and I moved into a graduate assistant role. I was very fortunate to be able to coach the wide receivers. We were short a staff member, so we had actually somebody that was technically on paper quarterbacks wide receivers coach. That's Kevin Johns. He's the OC at Duke now. But it gave me a really good role on the field and in the meeting rooms of stepping up and leading an entire wide receiver corps. So took that, ran with it, had a blast doing that. Timed out as a GA, stayed on staff to where I could still work offensively, but I was the director of recruiting. Had no business being the director of recruiting, but it was a great title and kept me working football. So did that, was with Kevin for 6 years. When his time was up, I kind of saw that my time was up. I was a Wilson guy, so I saw that I needed to move on. Took a high school job in the area, Martinsville High School. So took over a place that historically in the 70s and 80s was phenomenal. And the 2 years before I got there, they were 1-19. So was taking over a place that needed rejuvenation and needed some energy, and loved it. Took over, like I said, 1-19. We won 6 games in a row my first year. Got to the sectional championship game. By year 2, we were ranked number 2 in the state. So we had a quick turnaround and just really embraced some history and some past. That was just a awesome experience for me. Getting thrown into it as a head coach is a whole new experience. So being a GA before that, you kind of got to fix all the problems before the head coach sees it. Now I'm the head coach. I was still fixing all the problems at a 4A school in Indiana, but did that for 3 years and was blessed with the opportunity to come home. Putnam City was open. Putnam City, ironically, was 1-19 the 2 years before I got there. If I never moved from the house that I was born in, I would have went to Putnam City High School. So it was a true homecoming, coming back to Oklahoma City where all my buddies are, my family is, groomsmen, all that stuff. So it was really, really cool experience. And just the whole 1-19 was really ironic and crazy. Felt like we did a phenomenal job there in 3 years. Built a great staff, had some really good coaches on my staff. Rufus Alexander was my DC for 2 years. Stole Brian Freeman from Jinx, stole Mark Ryan from Aponka City. So I really put together a good staff. We didn't win as many games as I feel like we were ready to, but we changed the culture. We had those kids hungry. They went from 1-19 to pissed off that they weren't winning state championships. and that wasn't fake. They were genuinely disappointed in getting beat in the playoffs, and the culture of that, and how to do things in the hallways and around town, and as brothers and sons and boyfriends. It was just we taught those young men how to do things right, and it was a big accomplishment for 3 years.
You said something that stood out to me about the Indiana job at Martinsville, and you said how historically they were a really good program and they had fallen on some hard times. You can say the exact same thing about Putnam City when you took over. You know, they had success earlier in the decade. They had been struggling when you took it over. And now taking over at Edmond North, you're right back where you've been the last two stops. This is a program that a decade ago was having a lot of success, 10-win seasons, playoffs every year. And then, for the last almost 10 years now, losing seasons, 9 straight losing seasons. I'm sure at this point, you have a blueprint from what your last two stops were. And so what is it about these jobs, man, that gets you pumped up and say, I want to go in and I want to fix whatever's not working?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what, the first two were such, it was a God thing. It was just like, oh my gosh, how did those even happen? How did it line up that way? And that was, I was ready to get into high school coaching, and then I was ready to come home to Oklahoma. So that was kind of weird. This one was quite a bit different. It was a job that when I took the Putnam City job, I knew I wanted to live in Oklahoma City. And I told my best friends, I said, man, there might be 3 jobs in Oklahoma that I would want other than Putnam City. If they came open, there's like 3 jobs that I would go after. And for some reason, Edmond North was one of those. I played against them in high school. Had a lot of really good friends in college that I met from here. I consider myself a little bit of a golfer, so always knew about Oak Tree, just little things like that. And my wife's store, she just opened up a little over a year ago, is in Edmond North's district. It's she owns a women's clothing boutique, and it's on Broadway and 2nd. So there were all these little things. It was like, man, it was one of those jobs I always thought would be a really cool job. And it guided me to that. In the same way, when it came open, I know the applicant pool was phenomenal. This is such a great place. I mean, you should see the facilities I'm in right now. They're unbelievable. The west side of the state, it says, it's 3 high school district, but they are as good of facilities as you can find. Great support, administration that's phenomenal. So I knew the applicant pool for this job was big time. But I think they knew, and I knew, that what they were looking for was a guy like me. I mean, there were guys that wanted this job that had won 6A state championships as head coaches. But they knew, and I knew, that I was the right fit, that we needed to change things, that you needed to rebuild, and you need to embrace some of that past and drastically change right now. So they'd seen that my success of turning 2 different programs around fast, I think, is what attracted them to me. And I had all those other things. Like, again, this place should be special. There's no reason that this place is not winning, much less, competing for it as far as the west side of the state, owning the city, winning state championships. There's no reason for that. So taking it over and going in full speed. And that's what we're going to try and do here. We're going to talk about winning, and we're going to go win.
Well, the guys that are on your team, they don't have to go very far to see, state champions, because there's, for those that only follow football, it might have been hiding under a rock for the last 2 years. The basketball team at Edmond North is pretty special. I got to think that when you have a school like that and a program like that, where, a lot of these guys, they hang out together. A lot of them are on the same team. They're on the football team. They're on the basketball team. They play both. I got to think that as a coach, you try to, take some of what basketball has been able to do and kind of try to feed it into your program as well. The football guys, they see the success that basketball is having. They see all the attention that basketball is having. I think they're playing in at least a couple national tournaments next year because of what they've been able to do over the last 2 seasons. And I got to think that can bleed in and give positive results to the football program.
No, it absolutely. I mean, it's cool to walk through the hallways and know that there's a culture of winning. It's not a place that was torn down and beat down and kids don't have confidence. There's kids that walk around these hallways with swagger. And obviously our basketball teams won back-to-back 6A state championships. So have the girls, by the way.
Yeah.
This school knows how to win. our wrestling team is big time. I mean, they're so amped up for next year. They're ready to compete nationally as far as the best wrestling team in the nation. Our baseball team's rocking and rolling. We got sophomores with Vanderbilt offers. Our quarterback's got Oklahoma State baseball offer. Like, this place knows how to win, and it's just a matter of bringing that into my locker room. You know, we're doing some renovations over in the gym right now. Well, I asked the basketball coach, said, get your guys over here and lift in my weight room, because I want my guys to see how it's done. And, you know, basketball guys don't lift like football guys, but they work and they know how to win, and they come in with confidence. And sometimes just feeling that swagger and that demeanor. Our school knows that. Wrestling, baseball, girls basketball, boys basketball, our golf team's phenomenal. These kids are surrounded by winners, and it's my job, our job to, hey, let's bring that in here. You know, that's borrowing a few basketball players. Come over, come catch some jump balls. You know, let's get in some wrestlers. Get over here and be dirtbags and hit some people. And, you know, let's teach some toughness. And, you know, wrestlers are different breeds of cats. So we need that in our locker room because it's already in our hallways. We just got to embrace it now on Friday nights.
Yeah, look, I'll go ahead and put out a shameless request. I would love to see T.O. Barrett put some pads and a helmet on. I think that he'd have the potential to be one of the top defensive backs in the state day one. I'm just saying, I see what he does defensively on a basketball court. I'd love to see what he does with the pads and helmet on. Sorry, Scott, I know you might be watching. You want to keep him in the gym.
Hey, I told T.O., I told Warlick, I said, y'all come out on Wednesdays and Thursdays. We'll throw you some jump balls. You know, you'll be just fine. Get you back in the gym. Your jumper's not going anywhere.
That's right. That's right. You know, talking about the 3 years you spent at Putnam City and now you're at Edmond North. The first 2 seasons you were with the Pirates, you were in 6A1, and you know the big dogs around the state. Now that Bixby has joined last year, everybody is aware of what the Spartans have been able to do over the last decade. How does that experience help you taking over this Edmond North program, knowing, you know, what you're going to be dealing with on a week-to-week basis as 6A1? You know, it has just continued to get deeper and deeper. You know, it's a coincidence that last year was the first year with 6 teams out of each district made it to the playoffs. But I mean, I looked at the matchups in the playoffs and there were no slouches. Like, there are some good teams, good programs, coaches, players, all of that. How does that experience with Putnam City and some of those opponents that you saw a few years ago help you as you prepare for your first season with the Huskies?
Yeah, I think it was a great learning experience for me. You know, it's funny, Bixby comes up and those big dogs get a little smaller all of a sudden because Bixby's here. But man, there's some great football in this state. And you know, 6A1's great. 6A2's big time. 5A's as hard as there is. So, you know, being around those places, winning a state championship at Shawnee, playing at Broken Arrow my senior year, playing against Union and seeing those guys is a tradition that I've known for a long time. And you come to Putnam City and you see the things that physically, culturally, equipment-wise, facility-wise, you don't have, but your kids show up on Friday night ready to beat anybody. I mean, in our 2 years at Putnam City, we beat Mustang, we beat Edmond Memorial, we beat Edmond North, we beat Southmore, we beat some teams, we competed against some teams. We played as tough as anybody could our first year against Owasso, and they're as good as they've ever been that year. So I've seen it with kids that don't have the advantages of some of the big schools do, and I've seen my kids be hungry, and we've taught them that you don't worry about them in any way like you worry about anybody else. These guys might have some things. Well, guess what? You guys have some things that they don't too. So we go into it each week, whether we're playing Little Axe or whether we're playing Union, and we're going to go control the game how we can control the game, hopefully get some big bounces our way, and fight every freaking chance we can.
And kind of piggybacking off that question, the experience you had at Putnam City, it's another district that has 3 high schools, and now you go into this with a district that has 3 high schools. How does the last, you know, stop at Putnam City help you? Because you know what to expect at this point. You know what it's like to be at a school where there's, you know, there's a bunch of kids within your town, but some are at Santa Fe, some are at Memorial. How did that help you as you prepare for this new gig?
Yeah, you know, one of the differences, and I'm learning that right now, and I think it's a great thing that Edmond schools have done. Edmond schools have fixed their transfer policy. And, in this day and age, everything's there's a high school transfer portal dang near. So
yeah, unfortunately.
disgusting
Yeah.
is what it is. But Edmond North, Edmond Memorial, Edmond Santa Fe, they've fixed that. You've got to live here to play here. And they check that. And that's a really good thing. Putnam City's schools is, it's kids aren't staying in permanent addresses, and there's some bounce around. So, being in that three high school district has its advantages, has its disadvantages. I'm working with two really good head coaches that I've got to know over the past few years. We're playing against them, scrimmaging against them, or just leaning on them for advice with Kyle White at Santa Fe and Logan Thomas at Memorial. Two guys that I highly respect, and I think we've got a really good relationship to where we're already working on some things to get people in our district to do for all three of us. We see what some other places have, and we're fighting to get those for our kids. So, being at those places, you understand you kind of got to share some stuff. There's got to be some equity. In the same way, I'm at a place where we have phenomenal parent support, and they're ready to do anything they can. They're ready to help us out nutrition wise. They just, again, you should see this weight room they just built last year, and it was just straight up boosters. So it wasn't the district buying it. And you got kids and parents and family members that, we got supporters in our booster club that have no kids on the team. They just love Edmond North. So this school has a little bit of a one high school town feel to it, because kids grow up and in kindergarten, they know they're going to graduate their senior year being Edmond North Huskies. So it's kind of got a little bit of a one high school town instead of that transfer, moving around, apartments, houses, yada, yada, yada. They're kind of here, and they feel that. And that's kind of the one unique thing about this place compared to Putnam City.
Let's get into some fun stuff now. Let's talk some football. Spring ball right around the corner. It's been almost 2 months since you were announced as the new head coach of Edmond North. First impressions of your new team, some of the guys that are coming back, some of the guys that have stood out to you so far. Obviously, you'll have a much better answer here in a couple weeks when we get out on the field and put some pads on. But first impression of the Huskies 2 months in.
Well, the first thing I say is there's no reason that they haven't won. I mean, you walk into this locker room, you walk into the weight room, you see these kids, they're long, they're physical. I think there's a new hunger to win, maybe, and a new philosophy and a new mindset. But this place has everything you need. So that's really, really exciting. From an outsider's perspective, you look at records, and they don't have any good football players. Oh, that's a basketball school. Well, I mean, look at my record. It hadn't been phenomenal, but what am I taking over and doing at places? So you got to look at bigger things than just, the win-loss column. And this place has potential that is ready to skyrocket. We're losing quite a few offensive linemen from last year, and we're going to have to replace those 5 guys. But we've got a stud quarterback back. We're going to have 2 big-time tight ends that are both college football players. We got a tailback that's a dude, just looking at him. Bringing in my new defensive coordinator and some staff changes that we're still announcing right now is exciting. The style of defense we're going to play. I'm going to take over calling offensive plays and get back to doing what I did, finding personnel advantages and tempo advantages with the stuff we were doing at Oklahoma when I was a player to the stuff that I dumbed down and did at Martinsville. We adjust what we do offensively to who our kids are. But I don't have to make too many adjustments as far as downgrades here. We're going to be pretty good at every little area, and so will everybody we play. So we're going to have to find some new advantages, be really unique and special on special teams, which we're going to do some really fun stuff there too. But there's no reason that you shouldn't win here. So getting the right guys on my staff, getting the right guys in the building, teaching classes, being in the hallways. Doing that stuff is step one, and these kids are hungry and they're ready to do it. They're buying in from day one, learning how to compete, learning how to win in everything we do. So it's been really exciting.
Like I mentioned, spring ball right around the corner. Practices open up, I believe, May 15th, and then obviously the last 2 weeks of May, first week of June. There's team camps all over the state, so we'll get our first look at what 2023 might look like. But what do you want to see from your group? What do you want to see from your team over the next month, the next 6 weeks, as you go into those summer months where, it becomes all about conditioning and getting in the weight room and in the strength and conditioning program. What do you want to see from your guys on the field over the next 6 weeks?
Yeah, that's an exciting part. I've seen these kids in the weight room and learning plays on a chalkboard. It's interesting. You got East Central and UCO and Notre Dame and Tulsa and Indiana coming in here to recruit over the last week, and they're asking me about kids. I'm like, he's a really good looking kid, and he's got a highlight film, which everybody in the world does. But I'm anxious to see. I'm anxious to see him hit and run around and catch and compete. We got to get tougher here. That's one thing that I've learned over the last month and a half is we're going to have to instill a new toughness, philosophy here. And you're going to have to fight through some dings and to compete and go after those big goals that you want. You're going to have to be uncomfortable in situations. So spring ball is going to be exciting for us. It's going to be physical. It's going to be tough. And a part of that's going to see who we're going to see. I wanted to see Mike Dunn and Carl Albert because that's the standard. That's the standard in the west side of the state. So I want to go see those guys and make our kids go compete against the best of the best. So we'll probably get into that a little bit more, but we're going to watch our kids work. And they're going to get coached really, really hard. They're going to get loved up. They're going to be encouraged. But we're going to make them tough, and we're going to make them have some confidence in what they do out on the field.
I know I'll see you at least one of those days that you're at Carl Albert's. You're absolutely right about what Mike Dunn is doing with that program, and they have some dudes. So we're going to find out. You testing yourself against the best in spring. I like it. We're going to wrap up all these interviews with the same question for every coach. If I'm a fan of Edmond North, if I'm a parent, if I'm one of those boosters that doesn't have a kid, but I'm just a fan of the program, someone in town, and I want to know what to expect from a Coach Whitson Edmond North football team coming up this fall, what can I expect from the Huskies in 2023?
We're going to win. Plain and simple. Well, that's the word we've talked about. The breakdown we talk about is winning. The style of football is going to be unique. We're going to be really, really aggressive. You have to be whenever you're not the big dog, whenever you're not the powerhouse that's been built for 20 years. You got to do some things that are a little bit unique and aggressive. We'll be smart with it, but we're going to have some fun. We're going to play a different style of football on offense, on defense. We're going to bring the house and special teams. We're going to have some really, really good aggressive stuff to give us an advantage against people. But don't come out ready to see the same old Huskies. We're going to win, and it's not going to be a shock to us. It's going to be our standard, and we're going to do that for a long, long time around here.
Well, Coach, like I said at the beginning, man, congratulations on the new gig. Looking forward to seeing what you can do with Edmond North. Be even better if we saw T.O. Barrett, Dylan Warlick on the football field. But again, Scott Norris, I know you want to keep them in the gym. I understand for reasons that their future might be a little brighter on the basketball court. But for selfish reasons, I still want to see it. So I'm at least
there were a lot of 6'3" and 6'4" guys get drafted this last weekend in the NFL. They're going to be just fine getting out of the gym. So
yeah, I'm just saying.
I'm all for it. So I got your back. You send a tweet, I'll follow it up and retweet it.
Well, Coach, like I said, man, congratulations. Looking forward to seeing you at Carl Albert and seeing what you can do with the Edmond North Huskies.
Man, I appreciate you having me. Thanks.
He's Edmond North head coach Carter Whitson. Looking forward to seeing the Huskies again later on this month at the Carl Albert team camp. Coming up next week, we have our second episode of the Prep Redzone Coaches Corner, and we're going to stay in the Oklahoma City area with another first-year head coach and a guy coming back to Oklahoma after being in Arizona for the last several years. Brent Barnes is taking over at Yukon. We're going to sit down with him next week. So if you haven't done so already, go ahead and hit subscribe on the Prep Redzone Oklahoma YouTube channel for all of our Coaches Corner interviews every single Wednesday throughout the month of May and into June. There's quite a few first-year head coaches at new programs, so we're going to be sitting down with them, talking football, talking about their careers, getting you ready for the 2023 season. For Coach Whitson, I'm Michael Knight, and this has been another edition of the Prep Redzone Coaches Corner.